Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes. We've talked too much today
Yes.
because we had a double recording, and now we're like, what do we talk about?
I know. I'm like, what do we say
Um,
now? Your shirt makes me think because Courtney is wearing a shirt from Zool, which is a brewery here, and she's showing it off
hmm
like there's more than just me on the camera to see it.
hmm
Um, but my 4-year-old has started being able to like read sight words and stuff, which is super exciting. And then tonight, Andrew was wearing his Zool shirt, and she was like, "Daddy, that says Zool," and I was like, "That's what my 4-year-old can read is the name of the
The
brewery."
important words. The important words as a kid. Oh,
Yes. So
yeah.
that was a little parenting win, maybe. I guess depends on your view.
Uniqueness.
She also was like
Yeah.
randomly just like, "Can we go to Zool because I really want a hamburger on the paper thing and then I want to play the game." Because like the food truck is, like a
hmm
what do you call those things? Like a little paper
It's
bowl
in like
kind
a little
of. Yeah, just
container.
like a
Yeah.
typical food truck type container. But she's like, "What's the name of that place?" Like, there's not a plate. It's kind of like a paper thing.
On the little paper boat.
The way that she explains things. I also never realized how bad I am at explaining what a word means until you have to explain what every single word means to a 4-year-old. And then in your explanation, there's like three more words that she's like, "But what does that mean?" Like at dinner tonight, trying to explain to her what it means to be dramatic. And then I was like, "Oh, it's just like you're very like over the top about a situation." She's like, "What does over the top mean?" And I was like, "Andrew, please help me here."
You're very animated.
What does animated mean? It's every
Yeah.
So Andrew gave her an example of, how she screams when a bug lands on her. And he's like, "That's being very dramatic." He's like, "Oh, I can't remember what he said, but it was like the perfect, I think he said like amplified emotions that don't match the situation." And I was like, "How did you just pull that out of your ass right now?"
She's like, what is amplified emotion
Yeah.
and
Let me, it's never ending. It's never ending. I gotta
yeah.
brush up on my vocabulary, I guess, and try to.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard to like explain like what does this mean? Like,
Yeah. Or like things in songs that she's like, "What does this mean?" I was like, "Well, it's just like a figure of speech." So now when she asks something that I can't really explain, she's like, "I bet it's just a figure of speech." I was like, "Yep, you got it."
you're right. That is exactly what dramatic is a figure of speech.
Yep. So
Yeah.
anyway, speaking of dramatic, we do have some updates, unless
Some
you had anything
updates.
else to.
Not really.
Okay. Well, I will jump in. I actually saw this article at 1 a.m. today when I was up with my youngest child. And by the time I sent it to Courtney, because I did not want to send it to her at 1 a.m., there had been an update in the case. So it was a very quick, rapid thing. But if you remember, I don't remember what episode it was. Roughly a year and a half-ish ago, we covered the Slender Man stabbings. It looks like Courtney is going to look it up and give us an episode number. I just remember that I was pregnant when researching it, so that's my only frame of reference for time. So Morgan Geyser was found guilty of stabbing Peyton Leutner. She did survive, but it was a very horrific attack. And Morgan has been in prison for many years and has recently been in like a supervised group home. And the day before this recording, which would have been November 23rd, she escaped from said group home after cutting her ankle monitor. Like, took the time to cut off her ankle monitor and escaped. And it was like 12 hours before the local police department was informed of this by the group home. So I saw this at 1 a.m. and she was still on the run, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is what is happening." And then when I went to send it to Courtney, it was updated at 8:52 this morning. So she was found at a truck stop in Posen, Illinois, which is about 170 miles south of Madison. And she was with a 42-year-old man who was charged with criminal trespassing and obstructing identification. So it does say he has
Wow.
since been released from custody. So
Interesting. So I wonder if he helped her, I guess, if he's being charged.
it sounds
I
like
also
it.
am like, are they going to keep her at this group home since this group home somehow let her escape and also didn't notify anyone for 12 hours?
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to know what, because, obviously if like you escape from prison, like that's going to be an additional charge. But like she's not in prison, but she has been sentenced to this group home. Like this was a condition of her parole. So is she going back
That's
to prison?
true. I would think
Because
so.
I
She
mean, you
should, in
broke
my
your
opinion.
parole.
That
Yeah.
because that's not just like an accident. That's very intentional
Exactly.
trying to escape.
Yeah.
But it is episode 230 and 231. It was two parts
Thank you.
in August of 2024.
Thank you very much.
Got you. Then our next update is also about episodes we did. I went ahead and looked up these episode numbers since I have it pulled up.
Courtney is more on top
And
of it
these
than I am. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. I'm like, at some
shout
point
out
between this day
Spotify.
and this day.
Shout out Spotify because you can go to a podcast and search that show,
That
in that
helps.
show. So, this one we just did back in like July and this August, which was the Karen Reed case, and that's episode 256 and 257. But if you remember, she was found not guilty. And now Karen Reed is filing a civil lawsuit against the Alberts, McCabe's, Brian Higgins, and Michael Proctor, who was one of the investigators on the case who made some very disgusting comments. His
Hmm.
supervisor, Sergeant Bakainik, don't know if that's right, and Detective Brian Tully. So she's alleging that the officers worked with the people in the house to cover up John O'Keefe's murder. And she said the lawsuit is not just justice for herself, who was personally sexualized and dehumanized and basically framed for murder, but also justice for John. So this is also her being like trying to find justice for him, which I think is very telling because people feel one way or another about a case and feel like it gets compared to OJ a lot, where he was like, I'm gonna find the killer, but he never actually took steps of like, I'm trying to find justice, where she
Hmm.
actually is
Yeah.
trying to find justice here. So,
Yeah.
but we will see where that civil lawsuit goes, and I'll be very interested. But I'm pretty sure she has a civil lawsuit against her from the O'Keefe family,
Mm.
so a lot going on. A
Yeah.
lot going on.
It'll be interesting to see how all of those play out. And also, as you were talking, so I just recently I wanted to read Amanda Knox's new book, which I think came out like in the past year. And as I started that book, I realized that she had like another book where she actually talked about like the whole experience and everything. So I read that one first and then read her new book. But just gotta say, there's a lot of parallels between these cases and how the media treated them and
Mm-hmm.
just things that just don't exactly add up. So I hadn't made those connections until I had that just very fresh on my brain. And then you were talking about that. I'm like, there's a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's see where that goes.
Yes. And so now we will get into today's episode, which is quite a wild one. So I heard about this case on the Law and Order SVU podcast that I listened to called That's Messed Up. And they talk about real episodes they talk about real crimes that are based on Law and Order SVU episodes, which I've probably mentioned this podcast 300 times on our podcast. But in case you're new here and I haven't, that's what it is. And it blew my mind. I was like, okay, well, we need to cover this because there's a lot going on here. So, our sources for this week include an NPR article, a CBS News article, the National Library of Medicine, and the Moms and Mysteries podcast called Snatched, Michael Mastromarino, Body Snatcher. And we met them at CrimeCon, so just had to throw that in there.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
I'll have to see a picture to remember because we met a lot of people.
Yes, yes. I got a big blue sticker. I don't know if you got their sticker, but anyway, that's why I was like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. So, and they did a really good job on it, just gonna say. That was my first episode listening to them, and I really enjoyed them. So go check them out too. All right, so human tissue donation is a very poorly understood and lightly regulated industry. So, similar to organ donation, human tissue can also be donated after someone's death and can be used to create medical products. So, for example, a tendon from a cadaver can be used to repair a torn knee ligament, veins can be used in heart bypass operations, and bone can be crushed into powder to help mend a broken leg or like build up the jaw around a dental implant, which I had no idea that so many parts of your body could be used in so many different ways in like these medical products.
Hmm.
So, human tissue transplantation started in 1949 when the U.S. Navy Tissue Bank opened and transported. Nope. So, human tissue transplantation started in 1949 when the U.S. Navy Tissue Bank opened and transplanted bone, soft tissue, and corneas. And more than 300 tissue banks formed, and the FDA started regulating them in 1993. So, as with organ donation, the individual or their family has to give permission for their human tissue to be used in this way. So, tissue includes anything that's not an organ. So, tendons, ligaments, skin, bones, heart valves, corneas, any of those things. So, the tissue is recovered from a cadaver, sterilized, and then turned into medical products. And this tissue donation recovery must happen within 24 hours of someone's death. So, the American Association of Tissue Banks accredits 91 tissue banks nationwide every 3 years, and the FDA conducts periodic inspections of these tissue banks. So, human tissue cannot legally be bought or sold, but tissue banks are reimbursed for their costs associated with obtaining the tissue and getting it ready for transplant. And over 1 million transplants of human tissue are performed each year. There are several eligibility criteria for donating tissue, including age, cause of death, the absence of chronic infections or inflammatory diseases or autoimmune diseases, IV drug use, cancer, HIV, hepatitis. I mean, obviously, you want someone who is healthy and in good physical condition if you are using parts of their body, again, just like organ donation. And one donor may help up to 75 different people, which is pretty wild. Because regulations around human tissue donation are much more relaxed compared to regulations around organ donation, it's the perfect opportunity for someone to lie about the circumstances regarding the tissue donation to make a profit. And in case you thought this was just an episode all about human tissue and there was no crime, we are finally getting into the crime.
They're
So,
like, wait a minute, I thought there was a name for
right.
this episode
Like,
title.
I'm confused. So this is exactly what Michael Mastromarino did when he stole bodies without family consent and forged paperwork about the health conditions of the individuals in order to illegally harvest their tissue. So let's talk about this man. So Michael Mastromarino was born September 16th, 1963 in Brooklyn, New York. He described himself as a quadruple A personality that's driven. So he's like, I am the most type A person that's ever been.
Okay.
Yeah. So he attended college at the University of Pittsburgh and played football while getting a degree in dentistry. He then went on to New York University College of Dentistry and specialized in implant surgery after getting licensed. In the early 90s, he met his wife Barbara at a tanning salon, and they had 2 sons together, but Michael was often unfaithful to Barbara. He owned dental practices in both New York and New Jersey and wrote a book about dental implants. Michael was sued for malpractice on multiple occasions. One patient alleged that Michael left him alone in an operating room while he was under general anesthesia during a procedure, which, one, is terrifying, and two, I want to know how this person knows this, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. Maybe someone, I don't know.
Yeah, like how would you know that if that, unless someone who like
Hmm.
worked there like saw Michael leaving and knew that he left a patient alone, you know?
Yeah, because this is general anesthesia too, so it's not like
Like you were
laughing
under.
gas
Yeah.
or, something like that. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But, he's got some fishy things going on in his dental practice here. And Michael also went on to struggle with substance abuse. So later, he said that he injured his back playing football in college and got hooked on painkillers from this injury. Who knows if that's what happened or if that was kind of an excuse after the fact. But in mid 2000, he was found on the bathroom floor surrounded by blood with a hypodermic needle in his arm. So he was high on Demerol, which was a medication used before surgery. And in July of 2000, Michael was arrested after a car accident where he was high on cocaine and Demerol. He was charged with possession of drugs and a hypodermic needle. Those charges were later dropped, but Michael was required to submit a urine drug test. The test came back positive for controlled substances, and he offered to give up his dental license for 6 months and attend rehab. However, he just continued to practice dentistry without a license during this time. So he's like, okay, I'll give up my dental license. And he's like, but I'll just do it without it. It's fine. I don't really need it. It's okay. And this was the second time in Michael's career that he had done this. So he got caught and was banned from practicing dentistry for 4 years, and he went to rehab 4 different times after this. So after all of this, Michael needed to switch career paths since he had now lost his dental license. So in 2001, he became licensed to supply tissue banks and manufacturers of biological surgical instruments. He also started his own company at that time called Biomedical Tissue Services. He operated out of Daniel George and Sons Funeral Home in Brooklyn, and his business was soon booming and he was generating a lot of clients. He was also able to grow his business to other New York City boroughs and even New Jersey. However, the amount of money Michael was making was not enough for him, so he offered Joseph Naselli, the owner of Daniel George and Sons Funeral Home, $1,000 for each body he could provide him for tissue harvesting. Both Michael and Joseph knew that these families had not consented to their loved ones donating tissue. So Michael would fake paperwork to make it appear that the families had consented. He also forged paperwork about medical conditions and cause of death so he could take tissue from bodies that should have been rejected. So patients who had cancer or AIDS had tissue taken and used to create medical products that were put into other human beings.
Yes, and also I feel like this is really messing because there are some religions where
Yeah,
they believe if you were not buried with like everything, like
yeah.
they do not believe in like donating organs, nothing. They
Mm-hmm.
believe you have to be like whole when you were buried or you
Yeah.
would not get into heaven. Like you're truly messing like with people's religion, now
Mm-hmm.
other people's health, like,
Like
ooh,
the extent of
yeah.
how far this reaches, it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you're basically like, oh, can I will pay you $1,000 for these bodies that I'm not supposed to have. Like you are buying dead bodies and stealing from inside them. And
Yikes.
to make it worse, to cover his tracks, Michael would also replace body parts with fake ones prior to burials. So he's literally stealing bones from inside a cadaver's body and then replacing them with PVC pipe before the bodies are returned to their families for a burial. So you're looking at your dead loved one in this casket at your funeral home, and inside their body, their bones are PVC pipe because their bones have been stolen to be used to make medical products for other people.
Just imagine like touching your loved one for the last time in their casket, and then you later hear that was PVC pipe.
Yeah. Yes.
This also feels like a lot of like harming a dead body because you're having to like cut into them to take out the bone and then put the pipe. Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
easy. That's
Yeah.
not just like a I put a fake mustache on him. Deep. Like you're like cutting open an arm.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I will say I did read that like the PVC pipe thing is often done like when someone chooses to donate if their family wants like an open casket, but everyone
Yeah.
is consenting and everyone knows what's happening and everyone's,
Yeah.
very
Exactly.
different
Like if you
situation.
believe there's a bone in there,
Yeah.
that's when I'm like, that's so messed up that like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So Michael, because this is going so well for him, then expanded his scam and started working with funeral homes in Pennsylvania and New Jersey as well to gain access to all of these bodies. So the owners of these funeral homes would contact him and he would remove their bones, tissue, and other body parts and sell them across the country to be used in making these medical products. Michael would then make between $10,000 and $15,000 per body after surgically removing the tissues and bones to sell to processing facilities.
Man, so Joseph is getting
Right. He's only getting
shortchanged.
$1,000 and he's the one giving over the whole body. But I guess
He's the
Michael's
one,
arguing he's the one doing all the dirty work, so.
I mean, I guess, but you're like risking your business. I'd want at least like a 60-40.
Right? Yeah. So Michael primarily worked with the companies RTI, LifeCell, and Tutagen, which were all legitimate and legal companies. So Joseph Naselli sold Michael around 100 bodies and profited about $100,000 during the life of this scheme. Naselli also owned another funeral home in addition to Daniel George and Sons. So Michael then started working with a funeral home in Pennsylvania owned by brothers Louis and Gerald Garzone. So they co-owned a crematorium with a man named James McCafferty, who also owned his own separate funeral home. So Michael approached the group in 2004 and again asked them if they would give him corpses in exchange for $1,000 each. So he felt it was easier to recover tissue here because they owned a crematorium, so Michael wouldn't have to worry about replacing the bones and tissues like he had to do with the other stolen bodies. Like they're going to be cremated anyway. It's so easy for everyone. And like we said before, if a body was to be buried, he would replace the stolen bones with PVC pipe before sending it back to the funeral home that would take care of the burial. But at this crematorium, it was a lot easier to just do what he was doing, and then no one knew. So the Garzone brothers sold Michael a total of 244 corpses and made about $245,000. They never provided Michael or his company with death certificates, consent forms, or information for the next of kin for the deceased. They also gave him bodies that were not eligible for donation, so even if the families had consented to tissue donation, which most of the time they did not, they would not have been eligible anyway. So, some of the bodies were over 75 years old, or, like we mentioned earlier, had diseases such as cancer or HIV, which should have made them ineligible for tissue donation. They would also often call Michael to pick up a body and would leave it unrefrigerated in the alley for days.
Somebody had to smell that. And I know you're like, I'm near a funeral home, but if
Yeah.
your funeral home hasn't smelled in like years and then suddenly it starts smelling,
I
um,
feel like even if your funeral home just in general smells, that's a problem because I feel like there are
yeah, I've been in a
precautions that
lot of
should be
funeral
taken.
homes and I've never been
No.
like it usually just smells like cold.
Yeah, cold and flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just imagining the condition of these bodies that are too old to have tissue donation, have diseases, have been left unrefrigerated, and you're like, I'm gonna sell this to someone who's gonna use it to make things that go into other people's bodies. Ugh. Michael also worked with at least three other funeral homes, but not much is known about them because they didn't play as large of a role in this scheme as the others did. So I also wonder too if they were not aware, like maybe they weren't selling them in the way that the others were. Maybe they were just, giving bodies that they thought I don't even know
Like
actually.
were eligible and did have like tissue donation consent
Yeah.
forms maybe. Like
Yeah.
maybe he's like working with these funeral homes in like an actual legal capacity
Yes. Yeah.
versus the illegal
Yeah.
capacity, which then I'm like, how do you just like this guy seems shady and like you like do you confront them and you're like, would you sell me bodies? No,
Right.
no, no. Psh, dude, I was
I said the
kidding.
wrong thing. That's not what I meant.
That this is just tissue donation humor. You don't get it.
Right. Yeah, that is interesting to think about how what would happen for him to be like, okay, this is the person I can approach about this.
Like what energy does certain people give off that you're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, this lack of family consent and harvesting of tissue from ineligible bodies became a pattern for Michael. So, he and his two main employees, Chris Elderazi and Lee Crusetta, would go to multiple funeral homes and access recently deceased bodies to remove limbs, organs, tissues, and bones, even if they did not have permission for the families to do so, and even if the person was too old or too sick to be eligible for tissue donation. So in addition to, all the forging that we already talked about, he would also replace blood samples from diseased bodies with non-diseased bodies so that they would pass screening tests when he sold the tissue to other companies. So Michael's wife, Barbara, knew he was in the tissue harvesting business, but she didn't know the details of what he was doing and thought everything was legal and legitimate. And Michael maintained this scheme for 4 years until he was caught. So in 2005, a new owner who was chosen to remain anonymous purchased Daniel George and Sons Funeral Home. So after she started going through records, she had some concerns about how the finances had been handled, and when she saw the embalming room, a patient was on the table being worked on and undergoing tissue and bone recovery, which she found odd, which I couldn't really find out why. Like, I don't know if it was that's not a normal place to do that. Like, is that like I couldn't really find exactly why, but something about it kind of seemed wrong to
Hmm.
her. And the new owner also found old receipts from the previous owner showing bones and tissue being shipped to a company called RTI. So, again, something is seeming off to her. So, she reported her concerns to the Rackets Division of the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. So, the Rackets Division is responsible for investigating illegal businesses, among other organized crimes. So, she's like, I think something's up here. I need you to look into this, please.
I need you to come help me. I
Yes.
need help. I
Yes.
think I bought something crazy.
I
I think
stumbled
I'm
upon
questioning his word.
something.
Yeah. So the DA's office subpoenaed documents from RTI Surgical and the funeral home. So they learned that other funeral homes were also participating in a program where they recovered tissue and sent it to RTI. In their investigation, they found that on paperwork for one individual, a family member had supposedly signed in two different places, but the signature for the same person didn't match from one document to the next. The more they investigated, the more they found. So, multiple documents giving consent for tissue donation for a family member had been forged, along with documents that noted the cause of death and age of the donor. One document said the donor was 63 years old and had died of a heart attack, but they were actually 79 years old and had died of pneumonia, according to state death certificates. So, that's not at all what happened.
Yeah.
Which my thing is too, like you couldn't even like try to like forge a signature like properly.
Right? Like you couldn't put the effort
I
into
guess
it
maybe at
to,
that point they were just getting lazy. I'm
yeah,
sure the one they were like, no one's caught on to us yet, so what's the point?
that's true.
Michael was subpoenaed and hired a defense attorney, Mario Gallucci. He was eventually arrested, even though he claimed everything he was doing was legal. The DA's office continued investigating, and 99% of the family members they interviewed said they did not consent to their family members' tissues being harvested. Blood samples were the biggest piece of evidence against Michael. Many of the companies he worked with still had the samples that were sent in, and they were able to run tests and see the blood samples did not match the tissue samples they had on hand from the same bodies. So it's like the DNA is not matching at all. So it's obviously a very big,
Yeah.
you know, they're covering something up. They know that. The investigation also found that biomedical tissue services did not follow the necessary steps to determine donor eligibility and would forge documentation stating where a donor died, where the cadavers were obtained from, and that the donor's family had given permission for them to harvest tissue. They were also not properly storing the harvested tissue and donated cadavers. Again, remember the bodies that were left for 3 days in an alley. Also, how did that not attract animals?
Yeah, I don't know. But again, like I said, how did no one smell it? I just don't.
I got questions. Anyway, I don't want to know the answer, to be honest. Um, so Michael finally pleaded guilty to the charges against him in 2008, including body stealing, enterprise corruption, reckless endangerment, criminal conspiracy, deceptive business practices, and abuse of a corpse. He pleaded guilty to a total of 1,300 counts across 3 states and was sentenced to 18 to 58 years in prison to run concurrently.
1,300 counts.
That is so many counts.
I'm also just thinking about the amount of paperwork these attorneys had to do.
I was also thinking because I was thinking of like background checks, which
Hmm.
I don't think this man's ever going to be applying for a job again. But we'll get to that. But I don't think he's going to be going
I
anywhere.
don't think so.
But I'm just thinking like in the background check industry of like having to put these counts in and then like flipping through, being like, oh my God. Like the most I've ever seen is like 400 counts on a case.
Wow.
I'm like 1,300. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
So his wife divorced him after hearing him confess to his crimes during a sentencing hearing. Again, she did not know he was doing anything illegal, which also, if my husband was like, I'm into tissue harvesting, I'd be like, don't tell me details.
Yeah. Like
Don't want to know.
I don't need to know. But good on her for
I don't,
being like, that is fucked up, my guy. I'm out of here.
yeah. Goodbye, peace out, we leaving. I mean, I get it. I don't really know what Kevin does in his day-to-day job, so I get being like, I didn't know he was doing anything illegal.
Right?
Um,
Yeah.
So the couple agreed to pay back $4.6 million that they illegally earned. During the 4 years of his profitable scheme, Michael lived a very lavish lifestyle from the money he earned. He installed heaters under the driveway of his New Jersey mansion so he wouldn't have to shovel snow in the winter.
I mean, not
I
a bad
do feel like
idea.
this is a red flag. It's not a bad idea, but I do feel like this is a red flag.
Like if you
I
have the
do
money to
maybe
do that, you're
think.
like, I think we might have some questions here.
Didn't know that was a business either. But again, work harder, not wait, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe this is just something that rich people do and we wouldn't know. Maybe this is a
that's true.
common practice. If once you reach a tax bracket, you're like, yeah, that's not a task I need to do. I just put the heaters in there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But after he got caught, Michael contacted the Garzone brothers and James. McCafferty and told them to destroy any evidence, which is again a crime. They burned all of their records, and when the DA's office showed up, they told investigators their records were destroyed in a flood. Which I'm like,
Okay.
isn't this Brooklyn, New York? Wasn't there? How many floods are in Brooklyn?
But I'm also like, where are you claiming this flood took place? Because there's clear evidence of a flood. So if it's at the building that the investigator is coming to, and you're like, yeah, we had a flood, and you're like, where? I mean, did you just get
Hmm.
everything magically replaced in the short time period? I don't know. I had a lot of questions.
Yeah, like you could just say we destroy records after 2 years. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway,
I'm guessing they were within the 2 years though. So like, we got nothing. We
that's
just
true,
gotta
I guess.
cut our losses and
You're
see what
like,
we
we
can
gotta
do.
figure something out.
Hmm.
Fake a fire? I don't know. Anyway, in addition to their scheme with Michael, the Garzon brothers were also caught filing fraudulent forms and getting paid reimbursements for funeral services for those living in poverty, even though their families had already paid for their services. And they made around $75,000 with that scam. So, which you know what would be kind of a fun deep dive is about funeral homes because I feel like a
Mm.
lot are kind of
Scammy.
corrupt and
Hmm.
scammy, and they kind of prey on you being in a very vulnerable moment in your life and trying to upsell you on everything.
Absolutely. Just like when my mom was cremated and they wanted us to buy a very fancy transport casket for her to be cremated in. Like, why do we need to spend thousands of dollars on a box that's going to be set on fire? That makes no
Yeah.
sense. Like, why would we need this box versus the standard free box? And they're like, but don't you want your loved ones to have the, whatever fucking terminology they use to, yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. But
We're the scam
anyway,
queens. Get the scam queens on this.
yeah, seriously. In October 2005, the three were indicted on hundreds of counts. The Garzon brothers pleaded guilty and were sentenced to 8 to 20 years. Gerald was released in July of 2019, and Lewis is still in prison as far as we know. James McCafferty pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 3.5 to 10 years, which all feels kind of low. I understand it was like fraudulent stuff, but like you're also like assisting in a very big crime.
Yeah. Like you're messing with people's bodies. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
A very much abuse of power because
Yes.
like people are trusting you with their loved ones'
Yeah.
bodies. But so Joseph Naselli was indicted on 122 felony counts, including illegal dissection of a body. He turned himself in and was sentenced to 8 to 24 years and was paroled on November 3rd, 2015. So Michael's employees, Chris Eldorazi and Lee Crusetta were indicted on similar charges as everyone else, and they also turned themselves in. Chris decided to have a bench trial where a judge determines guilt instead of a jury of 12 citizens. The judge found Chris guilty of 20 counts and sentenced him to 9 to 27 years, and he was paroled on October 19th, 2015. Lee pleaded guilty and appears to be remorseful for his crimes, unlike the others involved. He seems to not have realized the extent of what he was involved in at the time, and he was sentenced to 8 to 24 years and was paroled in 2015. He wrote letters to families of the victims who had tissue harvested, as well as those who received the harvested tissue, to apologize and to offer to answer any questions they may have. And seven other employees of various funeral homes and tissue recovery companies pleaded guilty to various crimes regarded to the scam. So this is like a very, it truly is almost like racketeering. Like it is so
Yes.
big of a
So,
like scheme, scam, everything.
yes, like so widespread and like so many victims, which we will get into in a minute. But I also thought it was I don't want to say good because it's like you still did a bunch of shitty things, but like for Lee to take the time to like write to these people
Hmm.
and be like, I'll answer any questions you want to know because I feel like that's a big thing with stuff like this is so many unanswered things that you're just like, I want to know more details than I'm able to get because these people just won't talk because why would they? They've already been sentenced, like
Yeah.
whatever. And he's like, I'm here to answer questions that you have. So I don't know what, the extent of his role was and what he did and did not understand about what he was doing. And it is possible that he worked for this man and he doesn't see the consent forms. He doesn't get that. Like maybe he's truly just doing the
I
dissecting
mean, that
and
is true. He's being told, hey, go do this.
yeah,
Don't worry about the because you probably do want to keep it under wraps from most people.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, which I'm assuming since he was convicted that he probably had some kind of knowledge, but I don't
yeah,
know. But I thought it was big of him to at least reach out to the families and try to do what he
at least
could.
try to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the FDA launched their own investigation into all funeral homes and tissue recovery companies that worked with Michael and his company. The investigation lasted 18 months, and they discovered at least 12 funeral homes across New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania who were involved with Michael's scam. In the fall of 2005, the FDA issued a cease and desist order against Biomedical Tissue Services. All tissue products initially recovered from human donors by the company were also recalled. So the FDA also asked hospitals to contact hundreds of patients who'd received medical products made from the stolen tissue to be tested for AIDS, hepatitis, and syphilis. Michael destroyed many patient records, so it's difficult to determine exactly how many people received tissue from his company. Over 900 people that received stolen tissue brought civil lawsuits against processors who purchased tissue from Michael's company. These companies stood by their practices and said their sterilization processes were top notch and that no one would have contracted diseases from them. Many settled out of court, and no other companies were officially prosecuted. NPR did a piece on the human tissue industry in 2012. Part of their article wrote, quote, "You can't sell body parts. The law is clear about that. But you can take what's considered a reasonable fee for your work. Unlike organ donation, where a heart or kidney goes straight from a donor to a recipient, tissue goes through many steps. Is tissue taken from the body at the hospital, a funeral home, or morgue? There's a facility fee. Is the body moved? There's a transportation fee. A procurement team takes the body parts, that's another fee. Then companies take the parts and turn them into scores of medical products, unquote. So you can kind of see like kind of what they're saying, like there's so many different little aspects of this that like you can charge fees for. Like you're not
Hmm.
selling the body parts, but you're charging fees for the other stuff.
Yeah.
Michael said everyone in this industry was making a ton of money and no one talked about it, which I'm sure is true. I'm sure because I feel like why wouldn't you test the blood and the tissue to make sure they match? But they're like,
Hmm.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's good. So Michael Mastromarino, Ma
Mastromarino.
Mastromarino.
Yeah.
You know what, dude? I'm not gonna pronounce your name right.
Exactly. Doesn't even fucking matter.
Yeah, it's fine. There's too many M's in that name. Okay.
What did I keep calling him when I was doing the research for this? Like, there was something that I was like, I keep calling this man something, and I can't remember what it was now. Anyway,
So Michael's believed to have stolen body parts from more than 1,200 corpses and sold either contaminated or stolen tissue to more than 10,000 unsuspecting patients, which is a lot. 41-year-old Bobby Milner from Springfield, Illinois. What did I say wrong?
not you. Sorry. I searched our text for his name because I'm like, what was I
Oh,
calling this man? It was Maraschino.
Maraschino. Michael Maraschino. Maraschino Cherry.
And I was like, every time I read his name, I just say Maraschino in my head, but I was like, he's a piece of shit, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, sorry.
It's
Nope, you
fine.
didn't do anything. That was me.
So, 41-year-old Bobby Milner from Springfield, Illinois, had surgery to treat degenerative disc disease in her cervical spine and learned that her bone graft was possibly taken from British journalist and broadcaster Alistair Cook. So, Cook was 95 years old and died of lung cancer that had metastasized. Sorry, that's a hard one for me, guys. Metastasized to his bones and was therefore not an acceptable candidate for tissue harvesting for obvious reasons. So, Cook's daughter, Susan Cook Kittredge, said she had never given permission for her father's tissue to be removed, and also, from what we know, his tissue would not have been eligible. So, investigators from the Brooklyn DA's office told her they found forged paperwork from a Manhattan funeral home, allegedly signed by her family, allowing his bones and tissues to be removed before his cremation. Alistar's tissue was sold for $7,000, and the remains of his body were cremated and given to his family just 2 days after his body arrived at the funeral home. Because the tissue harvesting was done so quickly, there were no red flags to the families to notice that anything was wrong. Because, again, you see your loved one, they're cremated. It is done in a quick turnaround time.
Hmm.
You don't suspect anything like this would happen. I would never even think. does this happen?
Exactly. Yeah, and it makes you wonder too, like how often does this happen and they don't get
Yeah.
caught? Like maybe they're more careful with they do actually forge the papers, the same, whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, if you think about the amount of time that it's taking, it's not like the body's, it's not like the patient passes away and then the family doesn't get the body back for a week and they're like, something is off here. It's like it's a
Hmm.
quick turnaround time and there's nothing for them to suspect that things are not happening the way that they're supposed to.
Yeah. Patricia Battisti also received a bone graft made from tissue collected by Biomedical Tissue Services during her back surgery. She contracted syphilis after this back surgery and then learned in a letter from the hospital that she received improperly screened tissue from Regeneration Technologies, a company in Florida who obtained tissue from Biomedical Tissue Services. Dana Ryan also contacted hepatitis after receiving tissue from one of the bodies Michael harvested. So again, like Florida, like this is so widespread affecting people and
Hmm.
like hepatitis, syphilis, like especially syphilis, because syphilis can go like I think a very long time without being detected
Yeah.
and can lead to like extreme like side effects and like
Hmm.
death. Like
Yeah.
so Michael agreed to be interviewed from prison by NPR and he insisted that, quote, the case was completely blown out of proportion, unquote, and said, quote, they made me out to be like I was doing something completely outrageous, unquote.
I wonder why, Mikey Maraschino, why did they think you were doing something outrageous?
Because it's absolutely insane, sir. Also
Uh,
to like stand 10 toes down, being like, I don't understand what the
yes.
big deal was. Like, just be like, yeah, it was fucked up.
Yeah, like you have Lee over here who's like apologizing and writing to the families and trying to do the right thing, right his wrongs, whatever. And then you have Mikey over here who's like, "Oh, they made it out to be like I was crazy." Uh,
Oh,
Yeah,
what? One person got syphilis? Come
right.
on. That's literally what he's acting. Like, it's insane. And one CBS News article referred to Michael as the quote, Brooklyn Bone Snatcher. So Michael Mastromarino or Maraschino was diagnosed with liver cancer that had spread to his brain and bones in October of 2012, and he died in prison in July of 2013 at only 49 years old. So think about everything this man has done, and he was 49 years old when he died. Like
Yeah.
lost your dental license all these times, harvested all these bones, like insane.
You were wilding out your entire life over there.
Yeah. And I do feel sorry for his wife because she divorced him, but I think she still had to like try and like pay back stuff. So
Yeah,
she's probably left like, I have no money. My
exactly.
whole life's a lie. Like,
Yeah.
also going from like a lavish lifestyle to probably not so lavish
Mm-hmm.
after
After you have
all
to
of
pay
this.
back all of this money that you did not know your husband was illegally earning.
Yeah.
Just yeah, absolutely a wild one. Like I said, the whole time too, I'm thinking like, how often does this happen and we're not aware of
Hmm.
it and people don't get caught? And especially in a case like this where it is, I mean, there are, precautions put in place, but it's fairly lightly regulated as compared to like organ donation and other bigger industries that it's like, oh, this is the perfect place for someone to like slip in and forge paperwork and forge blood samples and people aren't paying attention and
Yeah, it just makes me so sad too because I did get to like volunteer some of my time with like the anthropological research facility, or
hmm
as a lot of people know it, like the body farm at UT. And like I did help a lot. A lot of it was like after people had been in the fields, like cleaning and prepping the bones for like storage for like
hmm
studies and stuff, and then also like labeling and stuff. But like I was there one time for like an intake, but it was like a very big thing where they came around, like everyone came around the body and they were like they had this like it wasn't like a prayer, it was like a little ceremony where they're
hmm
like, thank you so much for like donating your
mm.
body. Thank you for everything you're doing for research. Thank you for like whatever. And made it like a very like ceremonious, like
Yeah,
treating them
that's
with
really
like the
nice.
most up like so much respect because it's
hmm
like you were doing so much for like the research community.
hmm
And then to hear this being like, we forged a bunch of documents and we took these people's bones in there. And I'm like,
Left them unrefrigerated in the alley before we stole their body parts, replaced them with PVC pipe, and then sent them back to where they're supposed to go. Like, just the absolute, like, disrespect of a human being, you know?
Yeah. Like absolutely no respect. It's just again, like, and I'm not saying like all funeral homes are bad or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything like that. It's just like it is such a like an industry that it's so easy to take advantage of people. And
Hmm.
like you're putting so much trust in someone who could be so shady.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's the Brooklyn Bone Snatcher himself over there.
And not blown out of proportion. And he did do something completely outrageous.
Yes,
So
described exactly as it happened and not something that was blown out of proportion. Yes.
yeah.
All right, so that being said, Courtney, what was your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that for the first time since 2003, UT beat Florida in the swamp. And it's been a very long, not saying we have not beat Florida at all, but
Uh-huh.
not Florida at home. Like
Yeah.
we always lose to them at home.
Hmm.
So and kind of blew them out. They suck this year, but you know what? A win is a win.
Yep.
A
Take it
win's
where
a
you
win.
can.
I was like 9 the last time they won.
Yeah.
So it's just in the swamp. So,
Hmm.
I kind of half watched the game after we went up like 21,
Yeah.
28, nothing. I was like, I'm gonna gossip
I went
with
to bed at halftime because I
my
was like, I
friends.
don't need to.
I was gossiping. And then Kevin was like sitting on the couch and was like, we scored again, and we'd all go, woo. Anyway, and we'd like go back to
Right,
like our
like,
little
okay, great.
gossip tea or whatever. Like, thanks, Kevin, for representing for the football team. But um yeah, it was just a lot of fun. So that's my perk of the week because that was just really nice. And I don't know, the UT season's like made me a little bit sad just with some of our
Hmm.
losses. So it's kind of nice to have that like nice win, even if
Yeah.
Florida kind of sucks this year. No offense to Gator fans, but
So I think I've officially been banned from my aunts because we always go watch the games over there. And every time I have gone with my husband this year, we have lost. And then every time I have not gone with him, we have won. And so I think,
you're never allowed back.
no, I can't go back. So I guess I'm just going to watch the game at home by myself forever while my husband watches it with my family.
Or he stays home and you go and we see
Hmm,
how it plays
that's
out.
true. Maybe it's us
Maybe,
together there is the
yeah,
problem. Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah. Yeah, but that's my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So, my perk of the week is that it just officially fully feels like the holiday season. It's still a little warm. I would like it to be, I say I would like it to be slightly colder, but like I really don't like the cold weather. It's just the ambiance of it, you know? But
Yeah, I had to turn my AC back on.
yeah, same. But then in the mornings, like this morning, I woke up and it was like 64 degrees in my house because I had the AC
Hmm.
running last night and it got cold overnight. But you know, it's kind of chilly. The leaves have fallen. The trees are turning into their late fall, early winter, you know, losing all their leaves. And we're having hot chocolate and we got our tree up yesterday. Thanksgiving is 3 days away from the date of this recording, so we're, you know,
Yeah,
planning all of our Thanksgiving meals and, you know, we're all the holiday plans of our, you know, girls' Christmas movie night and we planned a gingerbread house thing with my in-laws and plan to go see lights with my family and just all of the fun holiday things. I just feel like we're fully in the swing of the holiday season. My 4-year-old is all about it. Everything is so exciting. She's bringing home all of her Thanksgiving and Christmas things from school, and it's just, you know, we're just in the holiday season, and I'm just trying to enjoy
yeah.
it, embrace it.
I'm trying to, because the last few years have just not felt the same to
Hmm.
me. So I think Kevin especially is trying really hard to make it like Christmas for me.
Hmm.
So we're getting our tree tomorrow. We
Nice.
went last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. Some Friday, we went and did the like Shadrack's Christmas one that you
Mm.
drive through. So we got to do that. And then we bought tickets for like the zoo
Mm.
lights
Uh-huh.
one. So we're gonna go to that like in a couple
Nice.
weeks. So we're trying to make it like feel Christmassy and
Yep.
like do Christmas stuff and like I just feel like the last few years I've just been like, why doesn't it feel like Christmas? And then
Mm.
you're like, oh yeah, because I'm not a kid anymore. And it's like not the same.
Yeah.
So,
You can borrow my kids if you want, because it really does make a difference with the holiday spirit. Because like seeing everything like through their eyes, it's just like
yeah,
fully puts you back in it. So
yeah.
anytime you want to come take them, Courtney.
Oh, I know. I need to teach my cats to be more in the holiday
Yes,
spirit.
there we go.
But
We also went to see Santa this weekend. I gotta send you pictures because they're adorable.
please do because I got Ashton's pictures and oh my
So
God,
good.
they're
I
gorgeous.
love it.
It's the best one because like my nephew is like smiling, and then Ashton said she practiced with Amelia smiling on the way because if there's anything my niece loves to do is be a wild card and be like,
Hmm.
"Am I gonna smile today? I don't know." But she smiled like really nice, or like sometimes she likes to smile like not with her teeth, and she'll just be
Mm.
like
Yep.
a little bit. No one could see that, but it's just like a smirk almost. But like
Yeah,
she smiled like really good, and the pictures just look so good.
that's cute. I love it.
And cute little matching outfits. It was freaking adorable.
Yes.
So.
We all bought matching family pajamas, so we did our Christmas pictures in the family PJs. We got a picture
Nice.
of the baby crawling away from Santa, which is really funny. Like she's got like this like shit-eating grin on her face as she's like crawling away, and he's in the background like, "What's
Oh,
happening?" Like,
that's so cute. Yeah.
but
We'll trade
Millie,
photos. They're not my photos, but they're my niece and nephew's photos. It's the
perfect,
closest
close
thing I
enough.
get.
They count. And then Millie drew Santa a picture of her and him and presents and the tree and all this. And then on the back was a map of how to get to our house. So she gave that to him. So he said he will definitely hang on to that to make sure he doesn't get lost on the way to our house on Christmas.
Perfect.
So, but it was just,
Yes.
it was so much fun. But yeah, that's just my perk of the week. It's now December as you guys are hearing this. So hopefully you are
Hmm.
also fully immersed in the holiday season and all the fun things, whatever they may be for you. Um, yeah. What else do we say?
And
If you
then if you wouldn't mind to just follow us on all the social media, or you can reach out to us about your thoughts on this episode, your thoughts on Christmas, whatever. I mean, in a general form, I guess. But just if you want to talk to us about anything,
Yeah.
you can do so on social media. It's all in the show notes. Our most important platform, though, is patreon.com/caffeinated crimes. You get a bunch of extra bonuses. We just had a bonus 2 weeks ago, all about the history of Black Friday. We have history of Halloween. We have like coming up on 60, maybe we're at 60, I
Yeah.
don't know, episodes that you can kind of have a backlog there in addition to like all the ones on our regular feed, Discord access, just a lot of like fun perks there. Um, but yeah, it's patreon.com/caffeinated crimes.
Yes, and any ratings you can leave us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, thumbs up on YouTube, anywhere where you can just kind of bump up our visibility and let people know that you like us. Please do so. Leave us comments, on episodes on Spotify. Nice ones would be preferred, but I guess
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Any engagement is better than nothing.
Yeah.
But let us know you're here listening. Let us know your thoughts. We love to chat with you guys.
Yeah, share us with a friend, share us on
Yeah.
your story, anything like that. We love to see it. Tag us if you're like listening somewhere. I just love
Yes,
to see people listening. So,
definitely.
but in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.